Hey, so continuing the five-step process on purchasing your home, this is step 2, and it's a really important one called knowing your economics, something I find people tend not to do early enough in the process. So let me dive in and explain to you what I mean. So the recap just on where we are. This is step 2. I won't read all of these out, but we laid this out in the introduction, which I'll put a link to below this video. So let's just talk about then the 4 key questions of knowing your economics. And when I'm first talking to somebody on the phone, pretty much these are the types of questions that at least 9 out of 10 of you would have, and they're the right questions. So let's just talk about them. So the first one is how much you can borrow, what's known as your borrowing capacity. The second one is how much you can buy a property for, and I'll get into this a little bit as we go. Importantly, what your repayments are likely to be for your budgeting purposes, and where do we go from here? What do we do now? So let me just dive into these. In terms of how much you can borrow, a really important thing here, it depends pretty much on 3 basic things. Income, I've put in inverted commas there because for nurses, look, to be honest, it's all over the place, and that's why and how we do what we do, to be honest, because we're used to this. But just generally speaking, when you look online or speak to a bank or other brokers who aren't used to nurses' income, you'll get all sorts of different answers on this one. It also depends a lot on lenders' policies as well. So income's one, your existing debts is another one, and that can often be a discussion whether we need to, pay those off or reduce them, whatever it might be. And also your living expenses as well. That's largely dependent, obviously, on lifestyle, but also how many kids you've got, if you've got them, and so on. Look, the important thing here is the answers differ so widely across lenders, and very much the case for nurses. So all I've done here is taken an example that we worked on recently. I've put it the highest lender, and it's not sort of, when I say the highest lender, it's not some obscure one. I've taken out the names of the lenders because that's not fair. I don't want to give the wrong impression, because it does differ a lot depending on each of your circumstances. So there's some really obvious ones might be if you've got casual income, agency, it could be a lot of overtime versus a little bit of overtime, packaging and all that. All these things lenders have different policies on, and that's why we get such a wide range here. So sort of among the highest lenders is this one that gives just over 644,000. We put in exactly the same inputs and got just under 475,000 for one of the lowest lenders. Now, I won't say who it was, but that was a Big Four bank, for example, the lowest. Don't think that applies to you because, as I say, everybody's different, but it's an interesting example. And this one here is a well-known brand name. I won't say again who it is, but it's a brand you would have heard of. No, they don't have branches in that, but you would have heard their name at least. So that just gives you an example in terms of how much you can borrow, what's known as borrowing capacity. Another important thing on this as well is that this is not to say you should borrow the maximum amount. I know that's what the numbers say, but that's not a recommendation that we make. There's a lot more inputs to it than that, but it does add to the quality of your application as well. So let's say in this example, you're borrowing $500,000. Well, clearly the lowest lenders aren't going to be able to do it for you, but even the one at the highest, we wouldn't say, well, no, we'll borrow $640,000. You'd still borrow that $500,000, and all it says to the lender is that, okay, well, they're being that's a high quality application and it comes under less scrutiny. So that's just an example of what borrowing capacities, how much you can borrow question might look like. The second one is how much you can buy for. Really, this is a function of your borrowing capacity, the one we just spoke about, plus your existing savings, plus any government breaks, of which are a big part of it these days, less any state costs. What I mean by that is all the different states have different laws in terms of when stamp duty kicks in and so forth. I'm just putting up an actual example here for a client we just worked on yesterday, and this just shows them that under they qualify for the first time guarantee, which is one of the government breaks. They've got around about 30,000 deposit at the moment, and so they're in Victoria, by the way. So why does that matter? Well, what state you're in impacts this line, your stamp duty, and this is for first-time buyers in particular. Then we can go down if you're under the first-time guarantee scheme with little as a 5% deposit. So what's known as your LVR, your loan-to-value ratio, is the opposite of that. So a 5% deposit means you've got a 95% loan to value ratio. In other words, you're borrowing 95% of the purchase price. I'll stop getting technical now, I do apologise. And then we go down, importantly for this one, is the funds required to do that. So on a $600,000 purchase, this nurse, she would require just over 33,000. 30,000, that's that 5% for the bank. And then we always make sure we're adding other costs in, whether it be what's known as statutory costs in this case, but also just allowing things like conveyancing, property inspections, so on, so they're not forgotten on the way through. So that's just how different that can work. So you want to know this. You want to know what you're up for across different ranges of purchase prices once you've got your borrowing capacity number. Okay, so then the third question becomes repayments, all important. And so that really depends on three key things. It's what your loan to value ratio is. Different lender policies is a big one here, remembering that what I put up earlier about the higher versus the lowest, how much you could borrow question, whether you're going variable fixed, what product features you're looking for, and so on. All I put up here is just to give you an indication. I haven't used any specific banks, is just to giving you a table just showing what your fortnightly repayments would be across different loan amounts across the top here and various interest rates. But again, you want to know those numbers for your own budgeting purposes, and you want to take a view on it. I covered this a little bit in the introduction, making sure that you're putting in a bit of cushion into that as well. Okay, and then the last question is, what do you do now? So in many cases, once you've got those numbers, you're pretty much ready to get a pre-approval going, and excitingly you can start your search. So you now jump in line because you know the numbers for these economics, you know how much you can buy for, you know what your repayments are going to be, you know you can borrow the money, so it enables you to jump online now. At least then you've got your budget worked out for you, and in the background you would go ahead and get a pre-approval going. Obviously we do that for our clients, but just generally speaking, that's what you would do. And then some of you, if you're not quite ready, that's completely okay. You might say, no, I need to save more now that I know my economics, or I might need to reduce some debt, so you need a plan in place to do so. So that's all pretty much part of what the next steps could be. And so that wraps up that key question 2 on just knowing your economics at that early stage of the process. You can see why, hopefully, that those key questions are so important. And the next one will go into how you get ready then to go to the getting your finance, which is step 3 of the process. Very quick reminder, there's all the contact details, you've got all that, and the legal disclaimer, I do need to put that up as well. This is just general advice. We'll see you soon with step 3.